Amara grew up in a lively household with her two sisters, Ada and Ngozi. The sisters were inseparable. They did everything together. They were all beautiful, but Amara's beauty was unmatched. Mothers in their village envied her beauty, wishing their daughters were as gorgeous. Men often approached Amara, but she was determined to establish herself before considering any marriage proposals. Ada and Ngozi did not receive the same attention, but managed to find love and get married. Ada, the first sister, got married and left home. Everyone was very happy. The following year, Ngozi, who was the youngest, also followed. They all left home to start their families, leaving Amara alone with their parents. As time passed, Amara saw her friends getting married and having children. This made her wary, and she began questioning herself. She would spend hours in front of the mirror, assessing her appearance, wondering why no man looked her way when she was finally ready for love. Desperation grew within her. Her mother realized this and tried to calm her down. She usually told her, "You are beautiful, Amara. Please take your time. One day a man will notice you and you will also get married." She started attending church more frequently with her parents, hoping for a divine solution. When prayers didn't seem to help, she turned to fetish priests, seeking any means to solve her problem. The visits did little to help, and her desperation began to affect her appearance. Her once radiant beauty started to fade, replaced by a constant look of worry and stress. One sunny afternoon, Amara decided to visit Ada, who lived in a nearby town. Ada had recently given birth to her third child, and Amara thought the visit might lift her spirits. As she approached Ada's house, she heard laughter and the sounds of children playing. It reminded her of what she longed for, a family of her own. Ada greeted her warmly, but Amara couldn't help but feel a pang of jealousy as she saw the happiness in her sister's eyes. During the visit, one of Ada's children, a mischievous little boy named Uche, was causing trouble. Amara, feeling a sense of authority, scolded him for his behavior. "Uche, stop that right now. You need to behave yourself," she snapped. Ada, who had been watching from the kitchen, stormed into the room. "Amara, who do you think you are? You have no right to discipline my children. Find yourself a husband and have your own kids before you start telling mine what to do." The words stung like a slap in the face. Amara's heart sank, and she felt tears welling up in her eyes. She had come to visit Ada for comfort and companionship, but instead she left feeling more isolated and desperate than ever. As she walked back home, Amara's mind raced. She knew she needed to take drastic measures if she ever wanted to find happiness. The constant pressure from society, her family, and her own expectations weighed heavily on her. It was time to take matters into her own hands, no matter the cost. Amara went back to the fetish priest and requested a potion to attract men. She applied the potion on her face and dressed nicely to places where she could be noticed, but no man looked her way. When that didn't work, she decided to return to the priest, this time asking for something stronger. Amara thought to herself, "If no man wants to make me his wife, then it will be better to get a child. At least I will get someone to send and talk to, someone to keep me occupied throughout the day, someone I could call my own so people will not mock me with their children." She went to the priest, this time asking for a potion to drug a man so she could sleep with him and get pregnant. In her mind, she was done with marriage. The fetish priest gave her strict instructions to mix the potion in water, and Amara nodded. When she returned home, she met her parents at home. Her mother immediately realized something wasn't right with Amara. She followed Amara to her room and asked where she was coming from and why she was looking that suspicious. Amara just brushed her question off and simply said she was coming from work and that she was too tired to engage in any conversation. A week later, Amara's sister Ngozi gave birth, and their mother had to travel to help her. Amara saw this as an opportunity to execute her plan. She organized a small dinner and asked her father, Chief Okafor, to invite a man named Chidi, who was her target and an employee of her father. The night finally came. Amara was happy to see all her invited guests, especially Chidi. They drank and ate, and when the party was over, Chief Okafor asked Chidi to stay for a brief discussion about work. Amara took this perfect opportunity to serve them drinks. To avoid suspicion, Amara decided to get her father drunk as well, so he wouldn't notice her plans. In her desperation, Amara forgot to mix the potion the priest had given her with water. Instead, she spiked Chidi's drink with the potion and kept pouring alcohol for her father. Soon, both men were heavily intoxicated. Amara, in her own nervousness, drank more than she intended, trying to muster the courage to carry out her plan. In her drunken state, she stumbled around the house looking for the door to her room where she had earlier on directed Chidi to go and rest. The night was a blur of confusion and misplaced intentions. Amara's heart pounded as she navigated the dimly lit corridors of their home, her mind clouded by alcohol and desperation. She finally found herself at a bedroom door, convinced it was Chidi's. She opened it slowly, slipping inside with trembling hands. The room was dark, and she could barely make out the figure lying on the bed. Without thinking, she moved closer, her heart racing. The potion and the alcohol had taken their toll on her judgment, and she felt an overwhelming urge to complete her plan. Amara woke up the next morning in her father's bed, her heart pounding with a sickening realization of what had happened. Chief Okafor, still in a daze from the previous night, was equally shocked and horrified. The truth of their mistake hit them both like a ton of bricks. The house was silent, and the gravity of their actions sank in. Amara's mind raced, filled with fear and confusion. She had not only failed to seduce Chidi, but had committed an unspeakable act with her own father. The shame and guilt were overwhelming. Amara and Chief Okafor exchanged a look of mutual horror. Neither knew what to say or do. The consequences of their actions were too immense to comprehend. They knew this secret could never be revealed, but the weight of it would be a lifelong burden. Amara's desperation had led her down a dark and twisted path, and now she faced a future even more uncertain and troubled than before. The decisions she made in her moment of desperation had not only ruined her plans, but had shattered her family and her own sense of self. As Amara stumbled out of the room, she felt the walls closing in on her. The house, once a place of comfort, now felt like a prison. She avoided looking at the mirror, terrified of the reflection that would stare back at her. Every step she took felt like a walk of shame, and she couldn't shake off the feeling of eyes watching her from every corner. In the meantime, Amara's mother was at Ngozi's home, helping her with the newborn baby. Ngozi, still recovering from childbirth, relied heavily on her mother's support. The household was bustling with activity. The sounds of the baby crying and children playing filled the air. Amara's mother, though busy, couldn't help but feel a nagging worry for Amara. She noticed the changes in her daughter's behavior over the past few months, but couldn't pinpoint what was wrong. One afternoon, as she was rocking the baby to sleep, Ngozi's husband, Obi, approached her. "Mama, I've noticed you're preoccupied. Is everything all right? He asked gently. Amara's mother sighed. It's Amara. I feel something is not right with her. She seemed so desperate the last time I saw her. Obi nodded thoughtfully. Maybe she needs some time away. Why don't you invite her to stay with us for a while? It might do her some good. Back at Ada's home, Ada was facing her own set of challenges. Her husband's business was struggling, and the financial strain was beginning to show. Ada, ever the strong one, tried to keep her family together, but the cracks were starting to appear. She hadn't spoken to Amara in a while and was unaware of the turmoil her sister was going through. One evening, as Ada was putting her children to bed, her phone rang. It was Amara, her voice shaky and barely audible. Ada, I need to talk to you, she whispered. Ada sensed the urgency in her sister's voice. Amara, what's wrong? Are you okay? Amara hesitated. I don't know how to explain, but I need to see you. Can I come over? Ada agreed immediately. Of course, Amara, come over right away. As Amara made her way to Ada's house, she felt a sense of hope. Maybe her sister could help her make sense of the chaos that had taken over her life. She arrived at Ada's home late at night. The streets were deserted, and a sense of foreboding hung in the air. Ada greeted her sister with a warm hug, but she could see the distress in Amara's eyes. They sat down in the living room, and Amara, unable to hold back any longer, broke down in tears. She recounted the events of the past few days, the failed attempt with Chidi, and the horrifying mistake with their father. Ada listened in stunned silence, her mind racing to comprehend the gravity of what Amara had just revealed. She felt a mix of emotions: shock, anger, sadness, but most of all, a fierce protectiveness for her sister. We will get through this, Amara, Ada said firmly, holding her sister's hand. But we need to be very careful. No one else can know about this. We have to find a way to move forward. Meanwhile, at Ngozi's home, Amara's mother continued to worry. She decided to call Chief Okafor to check on Amara, but his phone went unanswered. This only heightened her anxiety. She knew something was terribly wrong, but had no way of knowing the extent of the disaster that had unfolded. At Ada's home, the sisters spent the night talking, trying to come up with a plan. Ada suggested that Amara stay with her for a few days to avoid facing their father. They needed time to think and figure out the next steps. As the days passed, Amara slowly began to open up more to Ada, revealing the depth of her despair and desperation. Ada realized that her sister needed more than just a place to stay. She needed professional help to deal with the trauma she was experiencing. Ada decided to take Amara to a therapist she knew in the city, hoping that talking to a professional might help Amara begin the healing process. Amara was reluctant at first but agreed, knowing that she couldn't continue living in the shadow of her mistake. As they drove to the therapist's office, Amara felt a mix of fear and relief. She knew this was the first step towards confronting her demons and finding a way to move forward. The road ahead was long and uncertain, but with Ada by her side, she felt a glimmer of hope. Back at Ngozi's home, Amara's mother finally managed to get in touch with Chief Okafor. His voice was strained and he sounded different. She couldn't shake off the feeling that something was terribly wrong, but Chief Okafor assured her that everything was fine. As the therapy sessions began, Amara slowly started to open up about her fears, her regrets, and her guilt. The therapist, a kind and understanding woman, helped her navigate through her emotions, encouraging her to face her past and find a way to forgive herself. Meanwhile, the tension between Amara and Chief Okafor remained. They avoided each other as much as possible, but the weight of their secret hung heavy in the air. Amara knew that confronting her father and finding a way to move forward was inevitable. But for now, she focused on healing herself. Amara's mother, sensing the growing distance between her and Chief Okafor, decided to return home earlier than planned. She needed to be there for her family and find out what was really going on. As she packed her bags, she couldn't shake off the feeling of dread that had settled in her heart. Back at Ada's home, Amara continued her therapy sessions, slowly but surely finding a way to cope with her emotions. She knew the road to recovery was long, but with Ada's unwavering support, she felt a sense of hope for the first time in months. As the days turned into weeks, Amara began to see a glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel. She knew she had a long way to go, but with her family's support and the help of her therapist, she felt ready to face whatever came next. The journey was far from over, but Amara was determined to find a way to heal and rebuild her life. What will happen when Amara's mother returns home? How will Chief Okafor and Amara confront their shared secret? The path ahead is fraught with challenges, but Amara is ready to face them head on with the support of her loved ones by her side. Her journey of beauty and desperation is just getting started. Stay tuned for part 2, where the drama heats up, the suspense builds, and important lessons come to light. You won't want to miss what happens next in Amara's life, filled with surprises and memorable moments. Keep an eye for the continuation of this exciting story. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more interesting African folk tales. Thank you.